The Texans extend Jalen Pitre, and the draft is here, so we'll have mock drafts. All that and more on this edition of the Bullpen.
The throw, the punches away. He floats one wide open, and there he goes. Tapped down for a Texan touchdown.
Hello and welcome to the Bullpen. As always, with me is Tom Chavarria. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm good. The Astros just finished up a series win over the Angels, which they're in first place. That's always good. Dynamo found a way to get a point against the LA Galaxy, albeit disappointing because they were up a goal and up a man and only came out with a draw. And the Masters finished up pretty good. So as far as me, non-Texan wise, because I am a sports junkie through and through, it was a pretty good weekend.
No, yeah. And I realized when I introduce the show, I always say, and with me is Tom Chavarria. I'm James Roy. Sometimes I forget to say that. You guys, I hope you know if you're tuned in, but that is me. I'm James Roy. How did you feel? We'll keep with the non-Texans news. There's a little icebreaker. Rory McIlroy gets I believe it's called the Grand Slam of golf championships by getting the Masters. I was surprised it was his first Masters because of how long he's been around. I'm not like super tapped into the golf world. I really like Bryson DeChambeau. That's kind of what's got me into it recently. But how did you feel about McIlroy finally getting his Masters?
He was due. He's won so many other major championships. So for him to finally get the career slam, is what they call it. That's the U.S. Open, the British Open, the PGA, and the Masters. It's dope. There's only 5 other guys that have ever done it. Some you don't, some you don't. Tiger's done it, Jack has done it, and then some guys way before the rest of us as far as golf goes. So he's in rarefied air, which is pretty cool. Roy's always had the skill to do it. It's just eluded him for whatever reason. So I'm happy for him. I don't always love the guy. I know sometimes he comes off a little brash. I've seen stuff about him not being a good people person. Obviously, when some of the live golfers went to live, he was very outspoken about, it's PGA or else. And, but that's never changed what I thought of his talent. I always thought he was a really good golfer, and I'm very jealous of his golf swing because I cannot hit a ball anywhere near that. And he's a little dude. I've seen him in real life. I saw him at it was the Shell Houston Open. Now it's Texas Children's. So I was blown away at how short and kind of compact he is, but can hit the ball a ton.
You said like 2 guys that you probably don't know because it's older, and I'm thinking it's like Chip Shaky Legs McGee, the reason they call it a chip shot.
No. I'm like, I'm trying to think what the names were. I saw it earlier, and I can't remember their names. I just know Jack and Tiger.
Oh well, just know that the bullpen stance on Rory McIlroy is not a people person, but a champion. And honestly, I could say that about any of the Texans, and I'd be happy as long as they were champions. That's what matters. So I don't need people's people. I need champions on this Texans team, and I think Tom would agree. But
I want winners.
We want winners. That's what we want. This is the swarm culture, I can't. By the way, amazing that we can talk about culture and people not instantly think about the Bill O'Brien era when we do it now. I think that's a huge breakthrough. But anyways, into our Texans talk before we go into mock drafts. As per usual, we did it a lot last offseason. This is really the only time we're going to have a chance to do it this offseason. But it's a mock draft Monday. I'm going to, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got our mock draft up. We're using this year NFL mock draft database simulator. I like the way the picks fell in that one. And we'll try and describe what we're doing for those who are listening to the audio version as best we can so that you can be engaged in this too. But before we talk about that, big news this week, Jalen Pitre, it was announced on Friday, signed a 3-year, $39 million base, up to $42 million extension with the Texans, $29 million guaranteed. It made him, I guess I should say, the highest paid slot or nickel cornerback in the league. I believe the Bears today at time of recording had like a couple hours ago beat that number, which is a prime example of why I think this is a good deal. But I'll save my details until after you talk, Tom. What are you thinking about this Jalen Pitre extension?
I've always been a Jalen Pitre Jalen Pitre fan. So I'm glad he's getting paid. I've thought, since they drafted him, all the tools are there for him to be really good. I think this new star role has really unlocked him and has turned some people from one side to the other. Me and James famously went back and forth not too long ago about how this guy was the reason that Stingley was not the monster that he is. I mean, he is, but he could have been better. He spent a lot of time protecting Jalen Pitre, and now I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But the one and only James Roy said I might have to own a Jalen Pitre jersey, and if you'd have said that 2 years ago, he'd have called you a liar and be like, "It'll never happen. Get out of my face."
I mean, yeah, I'm a changed man. If I haven't already said it enough, sorry, Jalen. I was unfamiliar with your game. And granted, I put a lot of the assign a lot of the blame, I guess maybe not be the right word, but the credit probably is the word I'm looking for Jalen Pitre's turnaround on D'Amico Ryans for, doing his homework. D'Amico is an Alabama man, and I've posted this article. I've talked about it a lot, how Nick Saban used the star safety role along with, ironically enough, with Will Anderson Jr. being on the team, smaller, more agile edges to combat the Chip Kelly's, spread, hurry up, no huddle, no substitutions offense, to try and keep a defense on the field that is able to answer the call regardless of personnel, is as flexible as possible. And that's what this Texans defense has been able to do. They're not necessarily going up against consistent spread, hurry up offenses, but they're just so flexible and able to kind of adapt without very many adjustments. They consistently ran out 2 cornerbacks and 2 linebackers for whole games because of what Jalen Pitre was doing at the star safety role. And so I think it's a great signing. And like I said earlier, I literally on Twitter a couple hours ago saw that the Bears extended their nickel for like a $40 million deal that is supposedly more than what Jalen Pitre makes. And so we'll find over the next year or two that as that market progresses, people were like, oh, that's a lot to pay for Jalen Pitre. And don't look at the highest paid nickel thing as like it's not what it is at face value, because Jalen Pitre, like Tom said, is star safety. He's expected to both be the nickel and be the Sam linebacker. The reason that term was coined is because Bill Belichick, when he was on the Browns, was looking for an S word because of the literal expectation of this safety to replace the Sam linebacker on the field when you drop that linebacker from a 3-4 defense or 4-3 defense. So literally doing so much more than what is expected of us of a nickel corner. So you won't see me making that, emphasizing that, because that's national media. People that aren't in Houston maybe aren't familiar with what Jalen Pitre is being used for in this defense will call him a nickel, because that's the simple way of putting it. And I mean, the Texans, to be fair, will be looking to add nickel depth probably behind him if they don't view Jimmy Ward as like a long-term solution there. But with the way that room is shaping up, those guys would stand in as backups to Kalen Bullock and CJ Gardner-Johnson, but they would also be the nickel in a way. But that doesn't mean that that's all they do. So I'm all for the deal. Like Tom said, I'm a changed man. Jalen Pitre has been great for this defense when they found out how to use him. And to the people that are saying like, oh, Jalen Pitre can't cover, it's like, one, I was the first one to say that for the whole 2023 season. I was like, this is the definition of like why is Jalen Pitre on this team? He's literally a liability in coverage. And I think a lot of people are carrying that mentality into the 2024 season when Jalen Pitre wasn't really asked to do that a lot. And when he was, he's capable enough in coverage that he was not consistently exposed throughout the season. Otherwise, you probably would have, not heard me change my mind on Jalen Pitre. So with that being said, I don't know, Tom, do you have anything else to say on Jalen Pitre's extension before we move into mock drafting?
I really think that Nick Caserio getting it done out in front of this other deal, which I can't think of the other guy's name. I really want to highlight that deal. I went to go look for it while you were talking, and it just shows how much of a chess game Nick Caserio is playing with so many contracts where he's able to just get just a little bit better market value for some of these players. I mean, we look at the contracts that he's handed out so far to some of the big guys, and that Nico Collins deal just looks ridiculous now compared to some of the other money that's out there for wide receivers. I mean, T. Higgins is making more than Nico Collins. Like, there's no scenario where that should be a real thing when they're not asked to do nearly the same. So,
and yet it is. I mean, it's the negotiation, right? Like Nick Caserio understood, like, I'm going to get you for cheaper for like a short contract. It's like 2 or 3 years. At the end of that contract, you'll still be in your prime. You can still command, top market value that you will 100%, be owed if you perform the way we think you can. But we want to lock it in now because we know that what we have in you, and we just want to take some of the risk out on our end because of your health history over your first couple of years. Like, that's really what it was. The name of it is the Bears cornerback Kyler Gordon is his name, and the deal is a 3-year, $40 million deal. I assume that's base salary with $31 million guaranteed, so very slightly edges out Jalen Pitre. But we'll see over time that market, like I said, as teams have to lock up their players, we set the market. We're not reacting to a market that has been set. So the Texans got what at the time may not look like the best deal relative to that market, but for 2 reasons that doesn't really matter. 1, over time that market's going to progress, and 2, Jalen Pitre is not just a nickel. But for fear of repeating myself too many times, we'll move on and we'll get into these mock drafts. So like I said, I've got it pulled up. I'm going to share my screen. Apologies, we just switched to this new format, and when I switch to this, it's going to kind of mess with it. We hadn't really had a chance to adjust to it, but here it is. This is what we got. So we're using a new one. Apologies for the ads too. Like there's just a lot going on this screen. But I'm going to shift my focus to the screen. And Tom, I want you to go first because I don't want to go first. So I'm going to set it up. We'll do 7 rounds.
Okay.
Well, we're actually, you know what? I want to do 5 rounds because honestly, I feel like the 7th round is just, I could never.
It's deep.
It's deep. I'm just guessing at that point. I don't feel like it's really worth our time. Whereas in the 5th, I know a couple guys that I want the Texans to pick in the 5th, so I feel good about that. We'll do fast, standard, and we'll enter the draft room. There's the play button. And so we're off. No trades on these, by the way. We're just going to do it as it comes. But both Tom and I definitely believe the Texans should be trading back. Also, don't look at the trades that they offer because they're either ridiculously low or ridiculously high. No way around that. But let's see. Here's your board at pick number 25. Let me know if you want me to scroll down a little bit, give you a look at what you're dealing with.
Okay. I had done it over here to my left, and I had a totally different.
Oh, is yours different? Here, you want to share your screen? Here, yeah. I'll just put this one off to the side and save it for a rainy day. We'll give Tom a second. Here, let me see.
I got it.
You got it? Is it up? I'll see it pop up here in a second. Here we go. We'll add, let's see. Oh, before we'll remove an ad. There we go. Now we're on Tom's screen. So what do you got, Tom? Show us.
I've got like a couple edge rushers here that I guess they fell to us. So this is perfect for what I want to happen for these Texans. In a perfect world for me right now, I think the best thing that could happen is an excuse for them to trade back and gain more assets. Something like Mikael Williams and Shamar Stewart falling to us at 25, and some hungry team at the beginning of the 2nd round that really, really wants to target one of these guys that shouldn't be there is probably going to offer premium draft capital to try to jump, 6, 7 places to get one of these guys. I mean, that edge rusher out of Georgia, I believe is going to be coveted. But if I have to stay here, if I can't go anywhere, then I really feel like it's going to be really hard not to want a lineman or a wide receiver.
I see you got Josh Simmons there on your board. He's not here on my board. So, but there's a question of character with him. But that's maybe part of those pre-draft smear campaigns where they're like, this guy doesn't like to work.
But see, here's the thing, though. I don't know enough about Josh Simmons other than he's a tackle. Can he play guard?
I don't think he has guard. I think he has some guard flexibility, but Donovan Jackson is a guy who played guard for Ohio State in the absence of Simmons, I believe. But I think, if I remember correctly, Josh Simmons' scouting report says that he played guard at some point in his career, but it's not been his primary position for a while.
So see, like in this scenario, right, they have Emeka Egbuka at 33. And if the Texans could trade back to 33 and still get the guy that a lot of people felt like they wanted to get at 25, I mean, that's a win. You know, if it gets them a fourth round pick or a fifth round pick, it's an absolute win. I think
taking him at 25 works. I mean, the rankings on all these websites is different. There's websites where Egbuka never makes it to 25, and there's some where he's ranked so low that he'll be there. And the way that's progressed throughout the offseason has been interesting to see as someone who has done quite a few Texans mock drafts.
Yeah.
Who are you leaning towards?
It's got to be him. I don't know anything about Gray Zabel here. And
Gray Zabel has guard flexibility. I believe he played guard tackle.
Right.
But he went to South Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
Or North Dakota State.
True, but are you drafting? So here's the thing: are you drafting the school or are you drafting the talent?
I'm drafting the talent, but like, what was it? And I'll let you make your pick. I'll try and keep this short. But like, I had an exchange with someone on Twitter where he's trying to down talk, Jadeveon Clowney, like the Texans franchise was set back 5 years by that pick, and I'm like, dude, you have to understand the Texans would have been fools to not take him. He was SEC, and his body of work prior to that one hit against Michigan, like, set him up to be a top tier pick, the number 1 overall pick. He had been number 1 overall in everything his whole career. But he was like, well, Khalil Mack. I'm like, Khalil Mack went to Buffalo. There was no one that was thinking about picking him over Jadeveon Clowney because of pedigree. That's the tiebreaker. They're both talented players.
Yeah, but the thing is that kind of goes against your argument, because if you knew what Khalil Mack was going to be, Khalil Mack was every bit as good as Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, but in that moment, there was no one that believed that Khalil Mack was going to be more than what Jadeveon Clowney was going to be.
Right, but we just got to talking about, well, we can't take Gray Zabel because he went to North Dakota State, and Buffalo and North Dakota State can't be that much. You know what I mean? In the sense that the talent might be that good anyway. Now, for me, I probably take somebody like Donovan Jackson. And I just go, okay, I need to get the guy that I need to get for fit, and it's an Ohio State guy. Let's reject that. We're not trading anything. We're not trading anything. We're not trading anything. Did you see that? That was a Jacksonville trade. That would be wild. But
crazy.
I'm probably taking Donovan Jackson. I really feel like more than a wide receiver, which you can find really good talent in the middle rounds at wide receiver. I need to shore up this offensive line. Protect CJ Stroud at all costs.
Okay, sweet. We'll just go straight through your draft and then we'll come back to mine. I feel like going back and forth is going to be cumbersome.
Okay.
So how are you feeling in the second?
It's interesting. Again, I've got options at positions that I don't necessarily feel that are positions of need, like defensive line. Do I need a guy? And again, that's another school that maybe isn't high on my. That's not a power school. Toledo is not a power school. Do I want Darius Alexander? I don't know. I really have been adamant that I don't feel like a tight end makes a whole lot of sense for the Texans, especially not in the early rounds. So even though I've got Mason Taylor sitting right here staring me at the face and he's ranked higher than where they're at, I would never want to pick a tight end there. I don't know. Running back. The running back has been a conversation piece that, they could go somewhere there. They've got some guys that they signed to futures deals. I don't know. I don't know. This is really, really tough because you're, again, second round, you're feeling like that's somebody that should be a starter, right? How do you feel about your picks? Do you draft the best available and hope you can fit them? Or do you feel like I need this guy to be able to plug in and be a day one guy?
I feel like I honestly like this talk of like potentially taking a running back in the second round. It seems silly to me as someone who really likes taking a tight end early, which it would be in a similar category. I think running back, like you can get like guys like Ollie Gordon, will slip pretty far in this draft, and was once like really high level. I think that that's someone you could take a chance on. There's a lot of options later. This is a pretty deep running back draft, so like I think reaching on one that early is not something I would be interested in doing.
Now, see this Jonah Savanea guy. I've seen his name floated in some mocks. And
I floated him in some mock drafts.
Would it be crazy to take 2 interior offensive linemen and then just go, I need to stack that up? One of them is going to be good.
If you think that's the best value. I mean, Donovan Jackson has flexibility to tackle, so.
See, now that makes a lot of sense. So what if I did that? I will take that right now. They're okay with me taking these 2 guys, giving me a B plus on both these grades.
The Texans fan base that is like O-line, 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 every pick, O-line. So that's right in their wheelhouse. So
okay. Now we look. Here we've got Jack Besh.
Besh. I think that's how you say it, Besh.
Okay. In the third round.
I don't like TCU wide receivers, but I am really high on Jack Besh because what's that one meme? It's like, it never works for them. They draft TCU wide receivers really early and they never succeed. But maybe it will work for us.
Look, your boy's down here. I could still have Gunner if I wanted to take a tight end.
Well, you get him probably at 89 too if you waited.
And see, that's the thing. If you told me they picked Gunner Helmet 89, I probably don't mind it. It's the people that are saying I need to take a tight end and then one of the top 3 rounds. So maybe TJ Sanders here.
I like the idea of a young interior guy.
And that's where I'm at, right? I feel like there's a guy, you have a bunch of guys that you've been getting where 1 year deal, 1 year deal, 1 year deal. Here's a dude you can groom.
Yeah, I mean, and I've loved their ability to develop that. I've spoken to that extensively, but it's a good move.
All right. Now,
isn't that what the Eagles did like 2 or 3 years ago? They just drafted like interior defensive linemen out and O linemen like out the wazoo. Stacked them. That's the way to do it. Fix it all in one go. Tom is putting together a big boy draft, and then I'll put together some big boys, but also some other people.
All right, let's see
how
here. I feel like they got to take a wide receiver at some point. Utah State, Jalen Royals. What do you know about Jalen Royals?
He's a name that's been tossed around that a lot of people like. He shows up on a lot of Texans mock drafts. I hadn't looked at him personally that closely. Based on our conversations today, his school has been a deterrent for me. And this is someone who has included Darius Alexander, who you said earlier from Toledo, interior defensive line. Has maybe made exceptions for some guys, but generally speaking, Utah State's not a school that makes me think this guy could be a really good wide receiver for this team. Yeah. But I mean, he could have a really good career, and I make exceptions for guys that I have bias towards that I like. I'm like, oh, that guy could be really good, or maybe he's the perfect fit. But I hadn't done too much homework on Jalen Royals.
Okay, well, because we haven't done the homework, it's definitely not a school that I'm excited about. I'm going to take another D lineman. I'm just going to load up.
Just load up.
I'm just going to load up and just feel like a wide receiver will be there that I like.
Just conduct some trench warfare. That's what you're doing here. Oh man, he went. The one thing in this one is Quincy Riley is a guy who I really like at corner, has like some depth for the team. But in this simulator, he always falls like right. I can see the Texans trading up from the 5th round to get him or back in one of the rounds. But one player is Jaden Blue on your board right now? Because like when I look at running back, that's a guy that I show some interest in. But
He is not.
He doesn't. Sometimes he falls, sometimes he doesn't.
So I'm going to go find a wide receiver at this point.
Oh, Pat Bryant's a name people seem to like.
Also,
Illinois had a pretty good season.
I also can't be mad with a guy out of the SEC in Tennessee and Deontay Thornton.
Yeah.
Probably a project, probably somebody that then you got Jimmy Horn here. That seems like that's the son, right? Of former wide receiver.
They might be related. I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't want to commit to it and say that they are and then be wrong.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, at this point, I could totally see, like you said, they trade up or something like that. I'm gonna take this guy just because I believe they need a wide receiver.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna leave it at that. I think that looks pretty solid.
Sweet. I'm gonna switch this around real quick. Don't exit out of your draft. We're gonna go back to them in the end and review them. But
okay,
here we go. Oh, I gotta stop presenting this one. We'll bring up this one. Wow, Colston Loveland at the first pick. Wouldn't that be a selection? All right, let me see. I'm an awkward setup here. I'm gonna hyper focus on my computer now. Man, I could do so many things. I like the idea of just knocking out the wide receiver pick early. So I'm gonna go Emeka Egbuka. I don't feel like I need to go into a lot of detail on that one. That's just kind of been the pick for me in a way.
You're not alone.
Then I like to kind of stack up on the linemen. Oh, see, this is like the most awkward trade. Why would I trade a second-round pick for 2 fourth-round picks, a seventh-round pick, a 2026 third, and fifth and sixth? It's just like ridiculous stuff. Similar to yours here. I'm gonna scroll up. Let's see. Where's the value at? Where's the value at though? Marcus Mbo and Jonah Sabainia. I don't know. I'd have to really work on trying to be able to say that name at some point in the future. Are both names that are intriguing. Guys that a lot of people like. I almost want to risk it and just see if that Georgia guard Tate Ratledge falls, but I don't even think he's on the board anymore. I think he's out. Let me see. Yeah, he's been picked. Jeez, crazy. I saw he was still on the board in yours. With that in mind, I will. I'll go ahead and do the same as you. I like Jonah. I think that he could be solid.
I mean, Arizona was able to run the football a ton, so
yeah. And then I'm here at 79. Alfred Collins is still on the board. Stay away from the jailed wide receivers for now. Sorry, Isaiah Bond.
Oof.
Tough scene. If Besh falls this far, I really like him, but I did just take a big book. I'd rather go a little later on wide receiver and focus on maybe a need that the team has that's more pressing. I think I'm going to go with if Alfred Collins falls, I'm good with that pick, so I'll go ahead and take him right there at 79. And then at 89, now I want to see what's available here to get a little better value here. So we'll look around here. One guy that a lot of people like is Charles Grant. Kyle Williams is about 10 picks a little later. I've seen the name. He played with Cam Ward for a season, looked really good. He's really fast. Not that that's the only reason that I would pick him. But I am not opposed at this point to taking a wide receiver. There's part of me that wants to go with Charles Grant out of William & Mary because I've seen his name a lot, but it's also William & Mary, so I'm not necessarily super in on that. I'll go ahead and take Kyle Williams. It's going to give me an awful grade, and I feel like he's rated as a fourth or fifth round pick on other services. So in that case, I'd probably trade back, but I do like the idea of him. I'd probably just rather trade down to make that pick, but I'll make the pick. It's whatever. And then, like I said, we've got some life here. Ollie Gordon took the fall. I'm going to see. So Jaden Blue made it in mine. I don't know what happened in yours. Jaden Blue has drawn comparisons to that Lions running back. Man, I'm spacing super hard on his name. The Sonic and Knuckles. I can't remember now. I'm going to lose my mind over that because I really should know that.
Jahmyr Gibbs. There we go. He's drawn comparisons to Jahmyr Gibbs. If anything, so the reason I like a running back at this point in the draft, especially if it's Jaden Blue, you got a speed guy. Last season they were putting Dario Gambale in on third downs, which, I mean, solid guy, special teamer who can block, and but not super confident in his abilities to pass catcher out of the backfield. I'd like a speed guy who can throw a block, but could also get out of the backfield and make a play. I'm not sure about the blocking part on Jaden Blue, but I know from watching Texas play that he can get out of the backfield and make something happen. So I'm going to go with Jaden Blue, and that will round out my mock draft. So I feel like based on the way that this mock draft service is grading me, that I did okay. I kind of reached on Kyle Williams. I'll say I own that. I just like that pick a lot. 2 wide receivers. I don't know. What do you think? I was going to ask you the same thing. Like, if you take 2 wide receivers, what does that mean for your wide receiver room currently? Does that mean that you're parting with a guy like Xavier Hutchinson? Does that mean one of these guys is going to be able to return kicks? Like, I just wonder what that does. Like,
I think there's a lot of guys in that. So, like, to recap that room, because it was very barren for a second there. You got, and it still to an extent is Nico Collins, and then Christian Kirk, and then Mechie and Hutchinson, and then you added Braxton Berrios and Justin Watson, and I can't remember. I think they may have added one more wide receiver. But I'm pretty sure that was it. Realistically, anyone drafted, like, I don't like spending 89 on Kyle Williams, but I'd do it if I couldn't trade. But I think bringing in 2 guys, you need a clear 2 or 3 wide receiver. If you think Christian Kirk is definitely 2, then Egbuka slots in at 3. If you're not sure, I mean, I'm okay with Christian Kirk as the number 3 wide receiver if Egbuka shows up. There's some people that would talk about Egbuka and Kirk's skill sets being similar. I'm not super concerned about that. I want the best player. The amount of people that I've spoken to, Egbuka's football IQ and his route running and his ability as a wide receiver, I trust that Nick Caley will find a way to use him in a way that will be super beneficial. And the connection with CJ Stroud also would stand out to me. Kyle Williams would be brought in to compete. The main holdup I have on using, which I believe 89 is a 3rd round pick, late 3rd. I'd rather use like a 4th or 5th round pick because this is a guy who will be in the same pool as the receivers I mentioned. Outside of the top 3, in Egbuka, Kirk, and Collins, you're looking at a competition between Mechie, Hutchinson, this guy, Berrios, and Watson. And I don't know. Maybe they carry most of those guys. It's 1 or 2 probably getting cut. But I mean, after the 4th round last year, the Texans only kept 1 player, and they drafted like 3 or 4. So I'm not, in most of my mock drafts, I haven't included a 2nd wide receiver, but I was comfortable doing it in this one. I like it for the parody of it all, I guess. And I don't know. I would have liked to have gotten a tackle if there was more solid tackle available on the board at that point. That's probably what I would have done. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, how do you feel about the draft, though? If the Texans did this,
yours or mine?
No, mine. We'll talk about yours in a minute again.
Well, yours leaves me with questions, right? Like, yeah, you made some moves in the trenches a little bit, but now I feel like you're really hoping that 7 hits. Like it's really paramount that he does. Because I don't know what the guard room looks like. And I don't know. Like, you really can't afford for there to be another weak link in that line. So for me, I would have liked, maybe one more interior offensive lineman over a running back or a second wide receiver. But if they did this and they made some other moves, picked up some guys that got let go or whatever, made a trade for a guy, something like that, I probably wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, it also kind of hinges on Ed Ingram or Laken Tomlinson showing starting level potential. But also that would be short term, so then you'd have to look to draft another guy in the future. It does leave questions. I don't think it's my best work, but I mean, I wouldn't be super frustrated if that happened. But I can't say that I would love it all the way through unconditionally, unless there was some more work done off the field. But let's take a look at yours. I'm going to pull it up here. Give me a second. This producing stuff is hard work.
You're doing a great job. The guy behind the glass.
Tom here. So my biggest question is, man, did you really go all out on linemen? The two defensive linemen thing to me, Derek Barnett has luckily agreed to stay with the team. But I guess you went to two interior defensive linemen. I mean, obviously there could be room. Who leaves? Most of the rotation guys came back except for Foley Fatukasi, and they replaced him with Sheldon Rankins, or at least they brought in Sheldon Rankins in lieu of him in some way. Who leaves this room with two guys coming in? Do you think one of the rookies gets cut? Like, how do you see that?
No, I think both these guys make it. I really think that this is brought in as guys that some of those short-term guys can groom. You just talked about Sheldon Rankins. I don't see him being long for this team. So I could see a scenario where these guys are there to kind of get mentored, and then maybe next year you see one of those guys step into more of a role. I really think, like, with good teams like we talked about with the Eagles and stuff like that, they're just constantly churning in good young talent. And it's like somebody goes out, okay, they've got a good young guy to like fill in, and now he's got, some schooling, some seasoning, as opposed to just putting him in there green with a team that's built to win. So I really like having a couple of guys in this draft that they're able to, okay, look, if something happens, somebody gets hurt, okay, we may ask for you to do a little bit more, but in a perfect world, we just want you to be there and just soak up all that you can, so that when your number is called, then we can use you, and you've gotten a chance to watch us work and learn some of the things that I think D'Amico's a really good teacher.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I've spoken to before, adding a young guy makes sense to me. Adding two, contact control is cool, but so is winning. Like, that's how I felt about Cam Smith not getting sent down to AAA for the Astros. It's like, team control is great, but if you're really good at coaching up the position, then as the Texans have been with the interior defensive line, you'll make what you have work. And I'm kind of hoping the O-line will take some of that with guys like Laken Tomlinson and Ed Ingram. As much as, I agree with you, two interior offensive linemen in this draft might be the move, just to really make sure you drive the point home. But the only other question I have is how do you feel about the fact that you waited to take a wide receiver to 166?
Well, again, to me, if you take like a wide receiver early, you need that guy to be the guy right away, right? And with them going out and getting Christian Kirk, with them going out and getting Watson, I don't think you have to have a wide receiver that does that. When you look at Nico Collins, for better or for worse, was allowed to be behind some guys and kind of grow. I think wide receivers, they struggle early. I think it takes a couple of seasons for them to really build the rapport with the quarterback, get the route tree to where, and the playbook to where it kind of benefits them. So taking a wide receiver to have to groom if, Mechie is the guy or if Hutchinson is the guy, I'm okay with that. Like, I know there are some people that feel like this team needs a wide receiver right now. They're short a wide receiver, like, to start right away. And then part of me goes, well, Nick Caley's talked about running the football a ton. And, he's a tight ends coach, so maybe he uses the tight ends more. So do you really need that extra wide receiver that everybody feels like would be the move if you're not using him in that manner? If the main guys are still the main guys, maybe I don't need that.
Maybe. I mean, at the end of the day, I think taking a wide receiver high makes sense in my opinion, mainly because, like I said, I think that there needs to be a solid 2 or 3 option from the draft. So that's where I come from. Taking the second wide receiver to me is where the drama starts. I think that you can build a wide receiver room the way it is right now. Regardless, if you add a wide receiver, one guy, 1 or 2 guys could potentially get cut. But at the end of the day, I think that making sure you have the best possible targets available, because you could, but you really can't. I think if you're interested in getting better, spend every pick on an offensive lineman. And so with that, I agree. I liked your philosophy in terms of taking as many as possible, but like there's a point where I probably would have swapped out one of your defensive lineman picks with a wide receiver if there was a good one on the board. There was a point where Jack Besh was on the board for you where I would have probably gone with him. But I mean, overall, I like your draft because it follows the philosophy of champions, which is you need a position, make sure you grab as many as possible and see what happens, which I'm on board with. So overall, I'm not in love with my mock draft. I did like yours. I thought it was good. Aside from the 2 defensive linemen, that was my biggest snag. But yeah,
I think the best teams build in the trenches. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you got to build in the trenches.
When you see good teams not skip a beat if somebody gets hurt, and when you see good teams constantly getting their guys plucked, I think you have to be proactive. And I think having the extra bodies is something that if the Texans are smart, they'll do. And, they'll stay 2 steps ahead. You made an Astros comparison. I look at the Astros doing the same thing, going out and getting a guy like Cam Smith. They knew they weren't going to be able to pay Kyle Tucker, so they went and got 3 guys to replace 1 guy. And today is a perfect example of all 3 guys contributing to this team, with Cam getting an RBI, Isak with the bomb, and Hayden Wisniewski going 6 strong with 10 Ks and 2 quality starts so far to start his season. So they did a really good job of stacking up that team with more pieces instead of just going for that 1 home run hit.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to exit that part of the season where the Angels have a good enough record to think that they could potentially make the playoffs. And I think we're well on our way to exiting that part of the season with the way the Astros performed in that series. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The trenches are a big part of it. I think that the focus, because of a lack of history of being able to build offensive linemen, is to go younger at offensive line until it's proven. If Cole Popovich comes in and is like, D'Amico and the defensive line staff has been with defensive linemen over the past couple seasons, then they could put a cardboard box on the offensive line and it'd probably perform at least half decent, because that's how, like, with the defensive line, no discredit to like guys like Tim Settle, Mario Edwards, but like they weren't like marquee signings. It's not like the Texans are going out and grabbing like the best of the best on the defensive line. They're making the best of the best by taking those guys and getting their buy-in on what it is to be a Texans defensive lineman. So with that, do you have any final thoughts? So next week, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there now. We're having Aaron Wilson on the show to talk about the draft just right before live on Monday. So make sure you're there for that. But this is our last, like, just the 2 of us, as that one song says, talking about the draft. So any final thoughts on the draft before we bring it to a close?
You know me, man. I'm ready for it now. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's do the preseason right after it. Let's do regular season right after that. I mean, from the day, the season ends, it's when we get football back, and every little milestone is a potential to getting back to, getting regular season games going. So always excited to see what the Texans can do as far as improving their roster and the draft will definitely be another opportunity.
No doubt. I mean, obviously we'll have training camp and everything throughout the summer, but like to me, after the draft and going towards the end of training camp and into the preseason is probably the longer, more difficult stretch than the post Super Bowl stretch of the offseason. Mainly because with after the Super Bowl you have the draft and combine and everything to look forward to, and now it's like training camp's cool, but like once training camp starts, I just want football. Like Tom said, I just want it now. Just give me the regular season now. We'll just start it. But yeah, so I overall love the mock drafts somewhat, not all the way. But let's hope that Nick Caserio is cooking like he always does and has us walking away super impressed with this Texans team. As always, I've been James Roy, and with me, Tom Chavarria. You can find me at James Roy NFL on all social media. Tom is at Third Coast Tom on Twitter and at TC Tom1 on Instagram, and he's also on TikTok. I'm not gonna act like I remember what that username was. It was a little different, and we don't have to recount it. Tom doesn't really post on TikTok anyways. And this has been the Bullpen. Quick thing. I already mentioned the Aaron Wilson thing, but during draft week, I'm going to be doing a jersey giveaway on Twitter for the monthly giveaway that I do for Texans gear. So if you're not following me on social media, you probably should be, because then you have a chance at winning Texans gear. I got a message back from last month's winner with the it was like a shortstop sweater hoodie with the H on it, and he said it fit really well. He really liked it. That was an interesting piece of gear. I was glad I was able to give one of those away. But yeah, jersey giveaway coming next week, so make sure you're tuned in on Twitter for that one. As always, thanks for listening. Stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans. Thanks for tuning into The Bullpen, a Texans podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, and follow along for more Texans talk from The Bullpen.